hello. I'm in front of my artwork. The sun's shining and I'm feeling good. Here's my cameraman, a camera stand. And I have a new Play-Doh, the real one. I got two, the yellow one and this one. And it is good. It's a good day today. Really awesome. Fantastic. I always have hair in my face, either my papa dog's hair or my own hair, and it's always tickling. So always tickling, but that's okay. And I also sweat through these pores here in particular. Oh, the sun is shining into those jelly bean letters and it sparkles. It looks really good. It's really good. And I got a new book for my Kindle called Every Love Story is Also a Ghost Story by D.T. Max. And it is a book about the writer David Foster Wallace, who had reincarnated into a European basset hound, and he came to us, and he is my papa dog Dave. No, DT Max did not write about that. So no, he did not write about that. I wrote about that in my own little essays and blogs and stuff like that. I would like to talk to DT Max about this phenomenon of reincarnation. And I would like to have DT Max meet the Papa Dog Dave, and I'm not gonna say anything first. I hope he didn't see this video. I would like to introduce him to Dave and just see what happens. Just act like nothing is going on. And just observe him and see if he recognizes him. See, I made the mistake before with the son of Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche, because Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche had reincarnated into a dog named Casper, the ghost. So kind of like the ghost of Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche, an Asian man who was teaching Buddhism and different types of sectations of Buddhism and other rituals, and an interesting man, very, very wonderful, an angel soul. And it's very interesting, all of this, also the synchronicity of the reincarnation. And I see many more synchronistic points later on that I hadn't seen before, and this it confirms what I'm sensing, what I'm feeling about this. So I followed his story, very closely. I saw Caspar in an LA shelter, and I cried rivers, and I wanted to help him. And at that time I still had Kenny, but we didn't want another dog, particularly not a pity, because a pit bull, because we didn't know if they would get along, and we didn't want Kenny to get bitten again. But I know that Caspar would never have bitten Kenny. Never, 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 never. No. Caspar was used as a bait dog because he wasn't aggressive. So they used him as a bait dog. Absolute horror. Absolute horror. Absolute terror. Uh, I cried and cried and cried and cried and cried and cried. And when was that? It was either in 2011 or 2012 when I came across that story. And I had this feeling that I'd seen this soul before, I'd seen him before. He seemed familiar. He looked a little bit like Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche, and his aura was like that. And so at some point it came to me and it was like, oh my gosh, that's why, that's why, that's why. So, and then finally he came to Angel Parisa, who is a dog rescue lady in Washington State. And I followed him, and she gave Caspar his own Facebook page because they all knew that he is a very special soul. They all knew that. I don't know if Angel agrees with me on my reincarnation proposal on that. Probably thinks I'm wacky or wacko. I don't know what she believes, but people believe in all kinds of wacko things. But because the common consensus agrees with it, if if all other people, or the majority agrees, then it must be true, right? That Jesus walked on water, yes. It must be true that he converted water into wine. But that Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche reincarnated into Caspar, that can't be. You must be crazy. So, yeah. That's how humans think, because they think in terms of what the common consensus says, or the group they adhere to. It could be atheists too, which I regard atheists as the tabula rasa. Tabula rasa means a blank slate, a blank table, a blank desk. Rasa means like be rid of all junk. So rasa, like Rasen, Rasenmäher, means lawnmower. It's a German word. So rasa, so I just assume that rasa and Rasenmäher, that these words are related and that they have to do with also razor, that like to rid something of some clutter or something. So lawnmower rids the lawn of shrubs and stuff and high weeds, and it evens everything out. So that doesn't mean that's good. I'm just saying this is where the words are related. And so where it originally comes from, I don't know, but these words are intercontinental, of course. So, but anyway, no, I completely swayed off the subject. Okay, atheists are tabula rasa. That means they are like, they're sort of like on ground zero with their belief system. And yes, it is the belief system too, because they just decided to weed out, decided to lawn mow out the other stuff, you know, the other invented things from people. So that's all. Does that mean that they have the last word on truth? I let you figure that out. Truth. It's a nice word. Very misunderstood. Truth is the infinite cosmos, and there's a lot going on in the infinite cosmos. A lot. There's a lot more going on than an atheist could imagine. And the religious people got it all backwards. Completely. Completely. It's all reversed, actually. You know, actually, Jesus Christ is a fallen angel. What is a fallen angel? An angel that has had his wings clipped off, or never had wings yet, you know, still a prisoner of pain to some degree, you know, is still dabbling with carnal and ego issues. And lots of accusation. The accuser is, the word for accuser is Satan, which means Satan. Satan. That's where Satan comes from, that word. From the Hebrew word Satan, which means accuser. I've talked about this many times. I want people to really understand this. You know, it comes from a neutral word, not from some demonic, mysterious, dangerous entity or something. No, there is no such thing. But the human ego, oh boy, the human ego can develop something quite spectacular in that way in terms of human entity. Better believe it. And that's the ones that are accusing others of being devils. It's those people that are doing the human entity acrobatics more than anyone else, you know, in terms of showing themselves exactly like that, what they accuse other people of, being sort of like appearing demonic, you know, and like devils. That's just ego. So the Sai Baba once said that in every single case of someone accusing someone else of something, it is a projection of that person onto the other person. It is basically saying what he actually is himself, how he is acting himself. And he's projecting that onto the other person and accuses the other person of that. I don't know if one can take this all the way to this degree of saying everybody is doing this, but there's a chunk of truth about it, for sure. And the Scientologists know that. That's why they do these written tests with people, these lie detector tests and stuff like this, and where they always do these cross examinations. When someone says, I saw them do something there with someone else, they played a mind game, and then they go, so how long have you been playing the mind games? Something like this in this manner. I find that personally, that I find this interrogation tactic quite unethical. So that's a real mind game, actually. So there's an accuser, then the other person is accusing the accuser of actually that what he himself is doing. So he should, like, there's like three-way accusation and projection and so on going on. But the one with the last accusation, namely the interrogator, is the one who actually has the highest degree of that particular accusation subject in him. That's the pity of it, but the interrogator doesn't understand that. He doesn't realize it, doesn't go to that level to realize this. He stays stuck in his projection process of it. Read the book by Leah Remini. She wrote about the Scientology cult and how insane it is. And she broke out of it an amazing angel soul, enormous mental strength, particularly from someone who grew up in that cult. So same like with Taylor, Bravely Taylor, who broke out of the Jehovah's Witnesses, and she too grew up in that brave, courageous, amazing angel souls. Those are the real angels. They have wings, and Jesus Christ wasn't there yet, so, but will eventually be there. There's a ton of more people with wings, and there are God level souls, lots of those. No one recognizes this though, because the human ego doesn't recognize. So the human ego is impressed by the ones that are a little bit more advanced, but still have a huge ego. So this combination of the little bit more advanced guy or woman, and that with the little bit more advanced person still having a huge ego. So that's always very impressive to the majority, because they can't see far enough to see that the humble do-gooder in the background is actually, the one with the wings, or the one with the halo, or the one with the white beard. So I'm just using, these are just attempts to explain the level of souls. You can use other words for this. I'm just using the words that are already there out there that people know. So in order to make this understood, you can also give it number levels, names. So level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then 8 is the infinite cosmos. So level 1 is, I just gave them those names, so, and I came up with that ladder. So because I've been thinking about this. So the soul goes through stages of learning, and it can take eons and eons. It can take billions of years for a soul to develop. And then time is just something that humans think in, so it's not even about time. A soul can go into a mineral state and stay there for trillions of years, and then at some point come out and say, okay, enough, and someone drills into the rock and makes jewelry out of it, and the soul goes back into the Orion Nebula and decides, okay, now what's the next step for me to take? I've been sitting here for quite a long time. I rested. Now I can come back into a different form, into a different existence, into a chamomile flower, or into a dog, or a horse, or person, human. So I already realized my mother's gonna come back as another female human in her next life, and quite soon after she will transition again into another. She won't stay at the Orion for very long, so maybe for a day in our time calculation, and then she'll come back into a zygote of zygote is for a lot of people that are not informed about biology, that is a fertilized egg of a human. So, and she will grow up to be a girl and woman, and she will have problems with overeating because that's what she didn't have in this lifetime. So, and she judged people for being overweight always. And she'll have big boobs, and she'll judge girls with big boobs. So she'll have all of this herself, because I think there's some real secret underlying wish for her actually having it. But because she doesn't have it, she'll judge them for having it. So, and shame them and all of this. So this is it's very tricky how the ego works, you know. They'll shame something they actually envy. So yeah, he'll come back as that, the big fat chunky lady with big boobs. Okay, she'll be wanted, she'll be desired by men, and she'll see it from that perspective. Okay, then she will stop judging. So, and that's how it goes, and that's how we move from one existence to another. Okay, it's not a big deal. You don't have to put silicone into your body. Yeah. You can take the easier route and just come back and have that what you wanted. But in the meantime, why don't we use that what we have, what we Teal Swan says we already chose to have what we have in while we were at the Orion Nebula. I don't know if she doesn't call it Orion Nebula. I call it Orion Nebula because I like the way that sounds. So the infinite cosmos doesn't only consist of the Orion Nebula, of course, but it sounds good. So, so yeah, when they're out there in space, people call it heaven or whatever. So hell is what we create here on Earth. There's no hell in the inside of the planet. There's just sulfur and hot spring water and lava, and it's all good. You don't want to be flooded with lava, though. You don't want to go too deep into a mine because it gets hot there, but it's not hell. Hell is what people create here. It could be in a coal mine because of the hell they create with the corporatism and the human enslavement. That's hell. Okay. So, but hell could also be a woman who is jealous of another woman. That's hell. So my message to all of them is, why make such a fuss about this? You'll come back in your next lifetime, you have that, what you wanted in this lifetime. So, but in the meantime, yes, I'm making a video right now. In the meantime, let's use that what we have, precisely that what we have. In any situation that comes at us, let's use exactly that and not run away from it. I know it's difficult, everyone wants to drug themselves and wants to run away from it, wants to go into a cult and dive into a different reality just to get away from this, or have a TV on in every room and drink alcohol at your wet bar, and all of these things are forbidden. Okay, no, this if you want to really learn, if you want your soul to grow and move forward energetically, soul-wise, create an internal wisdom, because that's the only thing that really feels good. If you want to do this, this is the healing path. This is the healing process. If you want to do this, you have to face that what is. You have to face the reality of things. You can also make things better, that's also part of the school, to we live here and now, and some people live in misery, but that doesn't mean that they are doomed to that situation. Not at all. Some have it harder than others, some are trapped quite a bit, some are disadvantaged in this or that way, like what Warren Buffett said. I thought that's pretty good what Warren Buffett said. Paul told me yesterday that Warren Buffett made a statement about, if he, I wonder if he believes in reincarnation, but it was just sort of like a speculative statement on what if you would you come back into an would you be coming back into an existence. And he said if it's like a, because he thinks that would be just like a throw off a dice. It would be sort of like a random thing that would happen, and from our perspective that always seems like it is random. But he said that if he came back into existence, it would most likely, he plays with statistics, it would be most likely not into coming back into an existence that is as lucky as his existence is. So it would be probably very problematic and difficult. So no, because of that, rather not. And that ties into Dr. David Benatar's book, Better Never to Have Been. I believe that is the exact title. I always mix this up a little bit. So, but it's better to not exist. And so that ties right into that. But Warren Buffett had kids and he didn't think about this. And I think he's also religious to some degree, and I don't know, evangelical or whatever, or maybe not so religious, maybe not anymore. I don't know what he is. But I thought, yeah, I kind of go along with that to a degree, at least from our, from this existence perspective, it is definitely spot on. So if we are looking at it from a higher plane, from the beyond, from space, from heaven, there's the pepper dog, yes. Then, yes, the pepper dog. Yes, the pepper dog, yes. So if we look at it from space, then there's a different thing, different way of thinking, a different way of planning and deciding this is the existence I want to live in order to learn and grow. So some people set their goals way too high and then they can't manage. It's just too difficult. But maybe even that was part of this entire soul agreement then. So the Sai Baba said that whatever comes at us, nothing is worse than we can tolerate it, or than we are equipped to tolerate. I hope that's true. I had a horrible, horrible nightmare this morning. I was trapped in an elevator and I was screaming for my dad and he wasn't helping me. He wasn't getting me out. My life often feels like, first of all, I always feel like a prisoner of pain, and that's one of Dr. Arthur Janoff's book titles, Prisoners of Pain, because we are prisoners of pain. Most people are, Thomas Metzinger wrote about this in his book, The Ego Tunnel Most of us are in that ego tunnel. That means we are immersed and taken over by ego, our own ego drive, the self-defense mechanism that's constantly on the lookout how to protect the person from further shame. But while they're doing that, they are exposing themselves, and then they have to try even harder to protect themselves from shame, and it's like a vicious cycle. It's not good. So that's a prisoner of pain, someone who is constantly on the lookout how to save their face to other people. It's ridiculous. Forget other people, what they think. That's the first thing that people need to quit, is this looking out what other people might think of them. Boy, what that has caused, the suffering that has caused in the world. Ooh, unbelievable. The pretenses and pretenses of pretenses of pretenses of pretenses, pretending of pretending of pretending, the pretending pretense of pretentiousness. It just goes on and on and on and on and on and on and on. I think they call it the Sierpinski gasket. Georg Cantor. Georg Cantor, a Russian mathematician who moved to Austria, I think. That was 200 years ago or something. Somewhere around the time of Friedrich Nietzsche. And he came up with an infinity calculation, and it scared the heck out of people. And the most interesting thing is when I found out, because that was around I don't know, Sierpinski came a little bit later, I think. He was also Russian, I believe, a mathematician who also calculated the never-ending mirror in the mirror calculations, those kind of things. And well, that's also infinity calculations, like calculations that never end, sort of broken up numbers and stuff like this, fractures, fragmented numbers, and that will end up becoming fractals and fractal geometry. Very interesting. And when I researched about this, and I found Professor Dr. Georg Cantor, I was absolutely amazed when I saw that. When I saw how he was drawing this on the piece of paper, on the chalkboard. He was drawing an infinity calculation even without numbers. He was just drawing it with bars only, like just like a streak, like this, chalk, straight line. Okay, so, and then that straight line is gonna be broken up into 3 or something. How was this again? And then that each one of those lines get broken up into 3, and they get lined up underneath, and then it started to look, and that goes on forever. And then they started to look like the eyes of my blue god. Just like that. With that graph of those bars underneath. That is quite something. That is quite amazing. I was, my hair stood up on end when I saw that. It's like, oh my gosh. There's the blue god. There are the blue god eyes that I always paint everywhere.